Um, so today, this is the kind of stuff that I don't normally necessarily cover. But you know what? It's a big name, and it's something that I want to discuss from a bit of a different angle. George Laraque came out and publicly stated, and I'll link to the article about this. Um, Publicly stated that Taylor Hall had gone into rehab, and it doesn't get into why or for what. There's different kinds of rehab. I've had family in rehab. I've had friends in rehab. Um, there are times where psychological issues can take place, and you can end up in a hospital for reasons that may or may not be your issue. And it's um, basically what Laraque seems to be doing here is saying Taylor Hall had an issue, personal issue off the ice, and that's why the Oilers moved him. Oilers fans are well aware that this guy is no longer a member of the Edmonton Oilers. When Taylor Hall got traded, I got both the orange and blue Oilers jerseys for dirt cheap with Hall's name on the back from Lids because nobody wanted to buy him anymore. After he got traded, Oilers fans didn't want Hall jerseys at that stage. Um, Hall is really truly having a good year, but if there was an issue in his personal life going on, that would explain why he's had issues with his scoring in the past. The thing with this is there's a lot of players that have had issues like this and they haven't had it aired publicly. You'll hear the rumors. You go to any message board for any team and you'll hear rumors about guys who might be cheating on their wives, guys who might have a drug problem or a drinking problem, or they're basically just pricks to deal with. Maybe there's infighting on the team you hear about. And there are certainly people who've emailed me things they've heard about locker room shenanigans involving teams, and I haven't reported it because it's not my place to report it. I haven't come out and said, "Oh, well, this is what happened," because I haven't seen it personally. It would be secondhand information or third-hand information, and it wouldn't be right. So I don't do that. I don't do that kind of crap. Um, for Laraque to come out and say this, Laraque's a big fan of the Edmonton Oilers. Has played for the team for years. Um, and he wants to see the team succeed, and he probably sees the Hall for Larson trade as being this lightning rod. Um, when I look back through history, I know trades that have been made that a guy gets traded off because there's a personal issue that suddenly showed up in the locker room. Um, Jeff Brown being one in Vancouver that he just all of a sudden gets traded. And he was the best offensive defenseman Vancouver had ever had to that point. And then one day we wake up and we're like, wait, he got traded for what? Really? That's all we got for him? That's it. And, it baffled the Canuck fans until the rumor mill got going and we went, oh, okay, that's why that's all we got. Basically, what's going on here is that something's being reported about Taylor Hall that I suspect happens with a lot of players. I think it probably happens a lot. Why wouldn't it? These guys are multimillionaires. They have access to a lifestyle that most of us don't. And yet there are plenty of people who make a lot less money who manage to have personal life screw ups. If if that was the impetus behind the trade, that's a mistake. I'm going to say that straight out. That's a mistake. When a player's having these personal issues, unless that player comes to you and says, for me, it's best if I'm out of town. I need to move. I need a fresh start. Then you move them. But otherwise, you work with them. You rally around them. You keep your mouth shut about it, and that's why I'm saying this likely happens a lot, and we don't hear about it. Because I would think that if a player has a good relationship with his manager and the owner, he may go to a manager and say, "Look, in the off season, I got to work on some stuff with myself. Here's what's going on. Here's what my issue is," and manager would say, "All right, we've got a program we pay for here." Goes to the owner, says, "Look, he needs some personal time. He's got some issues going on. We're gonna do what we can." The owner says, "Of course." And the next thing you know, the player comes out in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it takes, and if it's not 100% resolved, he may feel better. He may need more time. There may be other things. But this should be dealt with in house. I think where I take issue with Laraque on this is it's not really his place to talk about it. it's not really his place to out this. And I'm only doing a video on it because now it's a public forum issue where everybody knows about it. And it's too bad. Because anything that Taylor Hall's battled, a lot of people have battled. Like I said, I've had family members who have spent time. I know when my parents split up, my father was in the psych ward for I think it was 6 weeks. He was in the psych ward for 6 weeks under suicide watch. And again, that's not something that had to come out publicly. I can say that now because my father passed away years ago. It's not something I'm publicly saying that wasn't a known thing, and he wasn't it wasn't a public figure. So again, I find it strange that Laraque picks now, other than because Taylor Hall's having a fantastic year in New Jersey, fantastic year, and it's increased that microscope on the Edmonton Oilers for making that move, because now this summer they're talking about, we need to get a winger that can play with McDavid. You had two, you traded two, because here's my thing. So let's say you can explain the Hall trade that way. Can you explain the Eberle trade that way? No, you can't. And if Chiarelli is if what we're saying is Chiarelli moved Taylor Hall for pretty much a very similar reason that he moved Tyler Seguin. Remember, Seguin got moved in part because he had maturity issues on a personal level that Boston simply didn't want to have to deal with, so they moved him. This is an issue. You're dealing with young kids with millions of dollars. They're going to screw up. And if Chiarelli is a GM who runs the ship such that if a young star player screws up, you're just going to move him, and it doesn't matter if you get back a fair value for him in return, the Seguin trade. Long term, the Seguin trade was bad for Boston. Short term, it was okay. It wasn't that bad. It became that bad. The Hall for Larson trade last year looked okay because Larson had a really good year. This year, Larson's kind of fell to earth, and now Hall looks fantastic. So again, the long game shows that it was a mistake. What if McDavid had a problem? Does that mean that Chiarelli will go, well, he's the future of the franchise, but he's got a problem, and I've established a personal vendetta against players with this. So, again, I understand Laraque maybe trying to make the Oilers look a little better and trying to explain what happened, but it kind of makes Chiarelli look worse. And I think it's intended to kind of smear Hall too. To me, it doesn't. It really doesn't, because a lot of people struggle with these kinds of things. I cast zero judgment. None. Because they're but for the grace of God, so go I, or however that is phrased. But I'd be curious to know the thoughts of others on this matter. If a player knows these things, if a former player knows these things, if a guy on TV knows these things, do they say it? And I think back to, from a reporter's point of view, Jason Botchford heard a quote from Joe Thornton. If Thornton scored 4 goals in a game, what would he do? And Thornton says something off the record, and Botchford went with it like it was this huge scandalous thing. And again, there are things that are off the record that should not become public, and there are things that are definitely on the record, and that's fine. If Taylor Hall had come out and said, look, I had to go from Edmonton because of, then he's disclosed it, and it's fine. For another person to disclose that dirty laundry bothers me. I'll link to the article in the description below this video. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on the matter, because again, I think this probably happens a lot. And in Edmonton, yeah, you look to the 80s dynasty the Oilers had, there were a lot of off-ice issues with that Oilers team. Edmonton's kind of had a reputation that way for decades that stems from that dynasty, and I would not be surprised to see that there's still some of that goes on in Edmonton, and probably in every city, probably in every franchise. But again, I'd be curious to know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.